Hello, everybody, and welcome to Exploring the Bible with Dave, where I read 3 chapters of the Bible every day. I've never actually read the Bible before, if anyone's new here, so this is actually a really fun experience. Actually, yesterday when I was doing chapters, was it 10 through 12, I was actually really, really taken back by everything and how it was done and how it was presented and all that fun stuff. So today I'm going to continue on that path. And I want to say I hope everybody had a very wonderful Thanksgiving. I know in the States it's Black Friday, so please don't go crazy and don't forget what the holidays are really about, because I don't think buying a big screen TV is worth draping on somebody's back. So, with that being said, let's begin, shall we? Chapter 13. Jesus foretells the future. As Jesus was leaving the temple that day, one of his disciples said, "Teacher, look at these magnificent buildings. Look at the impressive stones in the wall." Jesus replied, "Yes, look at these great buildings, but they will be completely demolished. Not one stone will be left on top of another." Later, Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives across the valley from the temple. Peter, James, John, and Andrew came to him privately and asked him, "Tell us, when will all this happen? What sign will show us that these things are about to be fulfilled?" Jesus replied, "Don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name claiming I am the Messiah. They will deceive many, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in many parts of the world as well as famine. But this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come. When these things begin to happen, watch out. You will be handed over to local councils and beaten in synagogues. You will stand trial before governors and kings because you are my followers. But this will be your opportunity to tell them about me, for the good news must first be preached to all nations. But when you are arrested and stand trial, don't worry in advance about what to say. Just say what God tells you at the time. For it is not you who will be speaking, but the Holy Spirit. A brother will betray his brother to death. A father will betray his own child. And children will rebel against their parents and cause them to be killed. And everyone will hate you because you are my followers. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. The day is coming when you will see the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing where he should not be. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of a roof must not go down into the house to pack. A person out in the field must not return even to get a coat. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for nursing mothers in those days. And pray for that your flight will not be in the winter, for there will be greater anguish in those days than at any time since God created the world, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless the Lord shortens that time to calamity, not a single person will survive. But for the sake of his chosen ones, he has shortened those days. Then it will, if anyone tells you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "There he is," don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform signs and wonders, and so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. Watch out, I have warned you about the head of time. At that time, after the anguish of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then everyone will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds with great power and glory, and he will send out his angels to gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the world and heaven. And now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things taking place, you can know that his return is very near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene before all these things make place. Heaven and earth will disappear. My words will never disappear. However, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. And since you don't know when that time will come, be on guard, stay alert. The coming of the Son of Man can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. When he left home, he gave each of his slaves instructions about the work they were to do, and he told the gatekeeper to watch for his return. You too must keep watch, for you don't know when the master of the household will return. In the evening, at midnight, before dawn, or at daybreak. Don't let him find you sleeping when he arrives without warning. I say to you, what I say to everyone, watch for him. Chapter 14. Jesus anointed at Bethany. It was now 2 days before Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The leading priests and the teachers of religious law were still looking for an opportunity to capture Jesus secretly and kill him, but not during the Passover celebration, they agreed, or the people may riot. Meanwhile, Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon, a man who had previously had leprosy. While he was eating, a woman came in with a beautiful alabaster jar of expensive perfume made from essence of nard. She broke open the jar and poured the perfume over his head. Some of those at the table were indignant. Why waste such expensive perfume, they asked. It could have been sold for a year's wages and the money given to the poor. So they scolded her harshly. But Jesus replied, leave her alone. Why criticize her for doing such a good thing to me? You will always have the poor among you, and you could help them whenever you want to. But you will not always have me. She has done what she could and has anointed my body for burial ahead of time. I tell you the truth, wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's deed will be remembered and discussed. Judas agrees to betray Jesus. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, went to the leading priests to arrange to betray Jesus to them. They were delighted when they heard why he had come, and they promised to give him money, so he began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. The Last Supper. Now, before I continue, I actually do like that little blurb about the woman who bought expensive perfume. You know, she had expensive perfume, and everybody was so harshly criticizing her for using it on Jesus. These disciples, sure they mean well, but you don't insult the worker in front of the boss. You don't insult the person on the street in front of like the mayor or the governor. When they're not doing anything wrong, because she bought it, or it was hers, and she could do whatever she darn well pleases, right? So if she wanted to give it to Jesus, and then let her give it to Jesus. Why criticize her for it? It's her property. She could sell other stuff, but I do love it when Jesus replied with, leave her alone. Why criticize her for doing such a good thing to me? And you could just tell that they were all like, what? I always thought that was pretty funny, because it's true. Like, if you want to do something good for somebody, you want to buy somebody a coffee cake or zucchini bread or, a bottle of cologne or perfume, go for it. It's a nice gesture. It's the thought, right? Anybody would be flattered if you came over and gave them a coffee cake or cologne or perfume, because it's flattering. It's always nice to receive a gift from somebody, That's just my interpretation of it, everybody. So, you can look at it as whatever you will or whatever you want. But if I am wrong in some of these word pronunciations, please tell me, because it's like Judas's last name is Iscariot. Ascariot? So if anybody could, clarify that for me, that would be great. But let's begin on the Last Supper, shall we? On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, when the Passover lamb is sacrificed, Jesus' disciples asked him, where do you want us to go to prepare the Passover meal for you? So Jesus sent 2 of them into Jerusalem with their instructions. As you go into the city, a man carrying a pitcher of water will meet you. Follow him. At the house he enters, say to the owner, the teacher asks, where is the guest room, where I can eat the Passover meal with my disciples? He will take you upstairs to a large room that is already set up. That is where you should prepare a meal. So the 2 disciples went to the city and found everything just as Jesus had said, and they prepared the Passover meal there. In the evening, Jesus arrived with the 12 disciples. As they were at the table eating, Jesus said, I tell you the truth, one of you eating with me here will betray me. Greatly distressed, each one asked in turn, am I the one? He replied, it is the one of you 12 who is eating from this bowl with me. For the Son of Man must die, as the Scriptures declared long ago. but how terrible it would be for the one who betrays him. It would be far better for that man if he had never been born." As they were eating, Jesus took some bread and blessed it. Then he broke it in pieces and gave it to the disciples, saying, "Take it, for this is my body." And he took a cup of wine and gave thanks to God for it. He gave it to them, and they all drank from it. And he said to them, "This is my blood, which confirms the covenant between God and his people. It is poured out as a sacrifice for many. I tell you the truth. I will not drink wine again until the day I drink it new in the kingdom of heaven." Then they sang a hymn and went out to the Mount of Olives. Jesus predicts Peter's denial. On the way, Jesus told them, "All of you will desert me, for the scriptures say, God will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there." Peter said to them, "Even if everyone else deserts you, I never will." Jesus replied, "I tell you the truth, Peter, this very night before the rooster crows twice, you will deny 3 times that you even know me." "No," Peter declared emphatically. Man, I really butchered that word, I'm sorry. "Even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you." And all the others vowed the same. Jesus prays in Gethsemane. They went to the olive grove called Gethsemane, and Jesus said, "Sit here while I go and pray." He took Peter, James, and John with him, and he became deeply troubled and distressed. He told them, "My soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." He went on a little farther and fell on the ground. He prayed that, if it were possible, the awful hour awaiting him might pass him by. "Abba, Father," he cried out, "everything is possible for you. Please take this cup of suffering away from me, yet I want your will to be done, not mine." Then he returned and found the disciples asleep. He said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Couldn't you watch with me even 1 hour? Keep watch and pray so that you will not give in to temptation, for the spirit is willing, but the body is weak." Then Jesus left them again and prayed the same prayer as before. When he returned to them again, he found them sleeping, for they couldn't keep their eyes open, and they didn't know what to say. When he returned to them the 3rd time, he said, "Go ahead and sleep. Have your rest." But no, the time has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Up, let's be going. Look, my betrayer is here. Jesus is betrayed and arrested. And immediately, even as Jesus said this, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priests, the teachers of religious law, and the elders. The traitor Judas had given them a prearranged signal. "You will know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss. Then you could take him under your guard." As soon as they arrived, Judas walked up to Jesus. "Rabbi," he exclaimed, and gave him a kiss. Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. But one of the men with Jesus pulled out his sword and struck the high priest's slave, slashing off his ear. Jesus asked them, "Am I some dangerous revolutionary that you come with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there among you teaching every day. These things are happening to fulfill what the scriptures say about me." Then all of his disciples deserted him and ran away. One young man following behind was clothed only in a long linen shirt. When the mob tried to grab him, he slipped out of his shirt and ran away naked. Jesus before the council. They took Jesus to the high priest's home, where the leading priests, the elders, and the teachers of religious law had gathered. Meanwhile, Peter followed him at a distance and went right into the high priest's courtyard. There he sat with the guards warming himself by the fire. Inside, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death, but they couldn't find any. Many false witnesses spoke against him, but they contradicted each other. Finally, some men stood up and gave this false testimony. "We heard him say, 'I will destroy this temple made with human hands, and in 3 days I'll build another made without human hands.'" But even then, they didn't get their stories straight. Then the high priest stood up before the others and asked Jesus, "Well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself?" But Jesus was silent and made no reply. Then the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" Jesus said, "I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated in the place of the power of God at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothing to show his horror and said, Why do we need other witnesses? You have all heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" "Guilty," they all cried. "He deserves to die." Then some of them began to spit on him, and they blindfolded him and beat him with their fists. "Prophecy to us," they jeered, and the guards slapped him as they took him away. Peter denies Jesus. Meanwhile, Peter was in the courtyard below. One of the servant girls who worked for the high priest came by and noticed Peter warming himself at the fire. She looked at him closely and said, "You were one of those with Jesus of Nazareth." Peter denied it. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, and he went out into the entryway. Just then a rooster crowed. When the servant girl saw him standing there, she began telling the others, "This man is definitely one of them," but Peter denied it. A little later, some of the other bystanders confronted Peter and said, "You must be one of them. You must be one of them because you are a Galilean." Peter swore a curse on me if I'm lying. "I don't know this man you're talking about." And immediately the rooster crowed a second time. Suddenly Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind before the rooster crows twice. "You will deny 3 times, and you even know me. And he broke down and wept. Now, before I continue, I want to just say that this is what I was talking about earlier in one of my other videos, that I think it was all predetermined, because these guys fell asleep when they knew something was going down. Like, not even one was awake. And that happened twice. And then Peter denied it 3 times. And you think, honestly, that would stick with you if somebody said, like, "Yeah, you're going to betray me. Because you're going to betray me." And, you would think you would do everything in your power not to betray that person, just to prove them wrong. So, and, he had no recollection of it till the end. So that's why I'm saying, like, maybe it was all predetermined, because Jesus kept saying it. And everybody, was like, "No, I'll never do that." And they always let him down, So that's why I was thinking it was all predetermined. It was all, like, planned out. And maybe that was just one instance in this where it was like it happened, because you can't change predetermined future. Like, I don't want to go off topic here too much, but if you guys ever watch that movie, The Time Machine, like that really bad remake, and I know I shouldn't be discussing this, but the main character, his girlfriend died, and so he built the time machine. And then he went back in time and got her, and he saved her from that accident. But then, like, later that night, as they were, like, walking around, or they're on a carriage or whatever, she gets killed. And you can't save somebody who's destined to die. You can't save them. Like, even if you do try to save them, you're only going to cause them to die, like shortly afterwards. Because once your time is up, your time is up. And no matter what you do, you can't prevent it. And that's why I know that was a bad movie, but that's what I was just thinking about right there and then and there, because he wakes them up. He's like, "Can't you guys just stay up 1 hour?" And they're like, yeah, and then they fall asleep. And then Peter denies him 3 times, even though just before he was arrested, "I will never betray you." But yeah. So anyways, that's just I just made that little connection. I don't know. I'm curious on what you guys think. So shoot me a comment. Chapter 15, Jesus' trial before Pilate. Very early in the morning, the leading priests, the elders, and the teachers of religious law, the entire high council, met to discuss their next step. They bound Jesus, led him away, and took him to Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus replied, "You have said it." Then the leading priests kept accusing him of many crimes, and Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer them? What about all these charges they are bringing up against you?" But Jesus said nothing, much to Pilate's surprise. Now it was the governor's custom each year during the Passover celebration to release one prisoner, anyone the people requested. One of the prisoners at this time was Barabbas, a revolutionary who had committed murder in an uprising. The crowd went to Pilate and asked him to release a prisoner as usual. Would you like me to release you, this king of the Jews?" Pilate asked, for he realized by now that the leading priests had arrested Jesus out of envy. But at this point, the leading priests stirred up the crowd and to demand the release of Barabbas instead of Jesus. Pilate asked them, "Then "What should I do with this man you call the King of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him!" "Why?" Pilate demanded. "What crime has he committed?" But the mob roared even louder, "Crucify him!" So to pacify the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. He ordered Jesus flogged with a lead-tipped whip and then turned him over to the Roman soldiers to be crucified. The soldiers mocked Jesus. The soldiers took Jesus into the courtyard of the governor's headquarters called the Praetorium and called out to the entire regiment. They dressed him in the purple robe, and they wove thorn branches into a crown and put it on his head. Then they saluted him and taunted, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they struck him on the head with a reed stick, spit on him, and dropped to their knees in mocked worship. When they were finally tired of mocking him, they took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him again. Then they led him away to be crucified. The crucifixion. A passerby named Simon, who was from Cyrene, was coming in the countryside just then, and the soldiers forced him to carry Jesus' cross. Simon was the father of Alexander and Rufus, and they brought Jesus to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. They offered him wine drugged with myrrh, but he refused it. Then the soldiers nailed him to the cross. They divided his clothes and threw dice to decide who would get each piece. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. A sign announced the charge against him. It read, "The King of the Jews." 2 revolutionaries are crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. The people passing by were shouting abuse and shaking their heads in mockery. "Ah, look at you now," they yelled at him. "You said you were going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Well, then save yourself and come down from the cross." The leading priests and teachers of religious law also mocked Jesus. "He saved others," they scoffed, "but he can't save himself. Let this Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross so we could see it and believe him." Even the men who were crucified with Jesus ridiculed him. The death of Jesus. At noon, darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock. Then at 3 o'clock, Jesus called out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you abandoned me?" Some of the bystanders misunderstood and thought he was calling for the prophet Elijah. One of them ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, holding it up to him on a reed stick so he can drink it. "Wait," he said, "let's see whether Elijah comes to take him down." Then Jesus uttered another loud cry and breathed his last, and the curtain in the sanctuary of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. When the Roman officer who stood facing him saw how he had died, he exclaimed, "This man truly was the Son of God." Some women were there watching from a distance, including Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, the younger and of Joseph, and Salome. They had been followers of Jesus and had cared for him while he was in Galilee. Many other women who had come with him to Jerusalem were also there. The burial of Jesus. This all happened on Friday, the day of preparation, the day before the Sabbath. As evening approached, Joseph of Arimathea took a risk and went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. Joseph was an honored member of the High Council and he was waiting for the kingdom of God to come. Pilate couldn't believe that Jesus was already dead. So he called for the Roman officer and asked him if he had died yet. The officer confirmed that Jesus was dead. So Pilate told Joseph he could have the body. Joseph bought a long sheet of linen cloth and he took Jesus' body down from the cross, wrapped it in the cloth, and laid it in a tomb that had been carved out of the rock. Then he rolled a stone in front of the entrance. Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Joseph saw where Jesus' body was laid. That was actually really compelling stuff. It's always actually quite interesting to see, because in Matthew, they also had Matthew's account of the crucifying of Jesus, and to see this, to be reading this, I should say to you guys, is actually quite compelling. It makes you really just sickened at people, but you could, people have never changed really, because if people really have changed, we wouldn't be treating each other this way, and it wouldn't be like complete insanity in our lives or in the world around us. But it's actually, if that makes any sense, it's extremely early when I'm recording this. I want to apologize. I've really liked it. I really like the fact that that everybody was taunting him. You know, you get all these like high religious figures, and they're just taunting him. And I don't know what religion, you know. Well, I know what religion they are, but what I'm trying to say is like I don't know what religion would ever tell somebody that it's okay to do that, or you know, it's just a mockery of it all. You know, it's a mockery of everything. And you can kind of still see that today with some groups of people when it's like, you know, oh, you know, we promote love and peace and blah 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 blah, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're always mocking the poor, you know, or they're you know, they can't drink or do anything, but yet they're caught in a liquor store buying liquor, or they're cheating on their wives with strippers or whatever, right? Or prostitutes. You know, it's kind of sad that you still see that today. You think by now people would have learned their ways, but like what Jesus said, you know, the body's weak, but the spirit's strong. So, you know, I probably butchered that, and I do apologize if I did. I just put my Bible down. Actually, you know, because that makes a lot of sense. That just explains to you, like, basically, like, the body is a very weak, like, vessel, but the spirit inside of it is really strong, like a seed, right? You know, you get like a sunflower seed, and you know the shell, you know, or a peanut, like the shell's somewhat weak, but inside the peanut's strong because you can grow, right? So, I actually like that. I really like this. I really like doing this with you guys. You guys are really awesome. And I want to just say, you know, I actually feel a lot better about myself and about my life and about the future since I started doing this. And I know I said that we're going to end Mark today, but there was actually 16 chapters, not 15. So I'm going to do the last chapter 16 tomorrow, follow with my whole interpretation on the Gospel of Mark. And then yeah. So I got everything already. I'm already got everything all, you know, with the whole reading of the Bible thing. I find that I'm really enjoying it, and I actually really enjoy that people are watching this and actually listening to it and having thoughtful discussions. I want to thank you all again for watching for watching my video, I should say, because we're already at 27-minute mark. So, with that being said, I want to thank you so very much. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, share these videos, share this channel. I'm doing this in my hopes to spread the word of the gospel to everybody through the eyes of somebody who has never read the Bible before. So, with that being said, have a wonderful day. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and enjoy your time off. To all those in America, all my American friends who have today off because of Thanksgiving. So, you know, don't go too crazy on Black Friday. Anyways, have a wonderful day, you guys, and I'll see you all again tomorrow.